Chapter 1. It was an auspicious and shocking day. Felix Hood's best friend was getting married today. Although Philip Stanley, the Marquess of Dunbury, was 3 years older than Felix, somehow Felix hadn't thought this day would come so soon. Then again, as a younger son to a viscount, Felix didn't have the same responsibilities that Philip did. His eldest brother, Thomas, would be the one stepping into their father's shoes, and his son would follow him. Unlike Philip, who had already inherited his title and thus needed his own heir. However, Felix also happened to know that Philip wasn't just marrying to ensure his lineage. He also happened to be rather enamoured of his fiancée. Felix was looking forward to meeting this paragon who had captured his friend's attention. As he walked up to the Dunbury house, the sound of voices in the alley beside it caught his attention, as did a glimpse of a pale dress. Any kind of lightly coloured finery seemed out of place in the servants' alley, which is what caused him to slow his pace, peering down the narrow walkway. A young woman, obviously a young lady, was leaning forward and talking to 2 little girls, obviously servants get, going by their much simpler attire. Her skirts melded to her backside, which was nicely rounded, and immediately drew his attention, as it would any experienced rake, especially one with his proclivities. Both little girls were clutching their dolls and very gingerly holding what looked to be 2 dresses in miniature, made with cloth much finer than that of their own clothing. The dolls' dresses were something he would expect to see a child of noble birth clothing their dolls with, not servants' children. His eyebrows rose at the sight. "We be ever so careful, miss," one of the little girls assured the young lady earnestly. "We promise." "I'm glad you like them," said the young lady, with a little laugh, her tones much more cultured than the little imps she was talking to. Although Felix couldn't see her face, he admired her light brown hair, which glinted with red and gold highlights wherever the sun caught it, and the well-proportioned figure of her backside. The 2 girls were staring up at her as if she was a goddess, as well they might. He doubted their dolls had ever received such finery before. "Now, run along, I have to go." That last was said with a bitterly resigned sigh, as if she would have much preferred to stay in the alley with the 2 little girls. They thanked her again, and then ran off down the alley, obviously ecstatic over their good fortune, while the young lady slipped back into the house, using the servants' door. Felix's eyebrows felt like they'd taken up a permanent position on his forehead, as he wondered if he'd just received his first glimpse of Philip's new bride. If so, he certainly approved, although if her front was as attractive as her backside, he was also going to be eaten up with envy at his friend's good fortune. Generous, thoughtful, and endowed with posterior charms, she seemed like the perfect woman. Perhaps he'd be in luck, and she was one of the guests, preferably a widow or married with an inattentive husband and a desire to have her passions awakened. "I now pronounce you man and wife." A sense of utter hopelessness rose in Gabrielle at the words. Her stepmother was now married to a man that Gabrielle barely knew, but was now responsible for her. A cold man, who looked at Gabrielle in a distant, almost disdainful manner that reminded her harshly of her own father before he'd passed. Her fingers clutched the bouquet she was holding tighter as she kept her smile pasted onto her face. The simple joy she'd received from gifting the housekeeper's daughters with dolls' clothes had worn off fairly quickly once she'd been recalled to her real life. Gabrielle liked children much more than she liked adults, especially adults of the nobility. The servants in her life had always been kinder to her than even her own family, and children were so easily pleased with whatever small tokens she could give them. She found the working class easier to talk to than any of her peers. They couldn't be friends, of course. None of them were comfortable crossing that line and actually befriending her, but they were often kind. Dunbury's servants seemed to have a mixed opinion of her, but that was likely due to the Marquess's influence. She hadn't liked the Marquess of Dunbury when she'd met him, and, truthfully, she liked him even less now.
to keep listening to this audiobook. I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.